Oh my God, Becky, look at that crust!
Have you ever eaten something and then regretted it the minute after? Sometimes it's the things we love that hurt the most. So here are the 10 most extreme bubble gut foods that trigger IBS.
Whoa! Smells like some vomit took a dump in here.
Carbonated drinks.
Just hook it to my veins!
Irritable bowel syndrome affects the large intestine and is accompanied by an array of symptoms, each more unpleasant than the last. One of the most common ones is bloating, which can happen anytime you eat or drink something that triggers your IBS. For the soda lovers, this one is going to hurt. If you've ever noticed feeling bloated after drinking a soda or any type of bubbly, fizzy drink, you might want to ditch this habit and start drinking water instead. While it might not cause IBS directly, it will definitely flare up the symptoms and make matters worse. The carbonation puts you at risk for excessive gassiness, which can irritate your IBS and most likely make you feel like you have a bunch of pop rocks in your stomach. Not only will it make the bloating even more intense, but it will also make your overall health poorer in the long run. If you feel like water is too boring of an alternative for you, then worry not.
I don't believe this.
There are a lot of other things you can drink that will still give you that little pep in your step. Tea is probably your best bet. Unless you're willing to spend the rest of the day gassy, steer clear of anything carbonated. You'll thank us later. Fatty and fried foods.
Is this chicken?
Hell no.
Alright, eating fried foods is never good. No one has ever claimed that eating a deep-fried anything was good for you or your body. We know that. But sometimes it's just so good we can't help ourselves. But people with IBS should try and minimize as much as possible their relationship with fried and fatty foods. In a lot of cases, fat seems to be exacerbating IBS symptoms, mainly because it is a strong stimulus of colonic contractions.
I didn't know what I was putting into my body.
Fat also slows digestion, which can lead to classic IBS symptoms like bloating, but also cause others like nausea, acid reflux, and stomach pain. Anything from pizza, french fries, fried chicken, and fatty meats will need to be rethought long and hard before being consumed. It's not necessary to completely cut them from your diet, but a little moderation and portion control should probably be implemented. Instead of indulging in a greasy meal, try to replace it with other types of fat, mono and polyunsaturated fat, aka the good kind of fats. These foods include olive oil and olives, eggs, nuts, seeds, and avocado.
Please, avocados taste great on lots of things. See? Avocado toast.
Wheat.
Best thing since sliced
bread. I know.
This one might not be such a surprise, yet a lot of people with IBS sometimes forget that they're not supposed to eat it. Wheat is in so many things, we often tend not to remember what has it and what doesn't. Breads, breakfast cereal, and basically any type of pastries usually have wheat in them, which makes finding sweets a little harder. Those with IBS have often observed that after cutting gluten from their diet, they experience some relief from the undesirable side effects. For those who might not know, gluten is a group of proteins found in wheat, barley, rye, and triticale that can cause bloating, pain, and even worse symptoms if you have a true allergy or intolerance.
I was dying earlier today, and then I died.
While gluten has often been the #1 suspect, recent studies have shown that some other compounds found in wheat and other grains are also at fault. Like what, you ask? Well, the fructans, which when broken down by intestinal bacteria can produce IBS-like symptoms.
Who did this to us?
So the culprit? Not always gluten. If you don't want to get rid of your precious bread, it's totally understandable. You can always try to get rid of the refined grains first and see if the symptoms improve, like by opting for 100% whole grains or wheat-free products. You can still enjoy your morning toast or your midnight sandwich. Just make sure you choose your slice wisely. Processed food.
It's comfort food that loves you back.
Most of us eat processed foods every day, sometimes without even realizing it. From potato chips to a slice of cheese, our diet is full of it. Processed food includes anything that's been cooked, canned, frozen, packaged, or changed in nutritional composition. Sometimes food is processed to retain its nutritional value and to make it last longer, which can be categorized as minimally processed. However, sometimes it's not processed for the best and can actually have nefarious effects on you, whether you have IBS or not.
Did you just soil yourself? Maybe.
These ultra-processed foods, no matter how delicious they might be, are often high in fat and contain a lot of additives and preservatives, usually used to enhance the flavor, color, or texture of the food, all of which can irritate the gut even more and trigger IBS symptoms. A diet made up of processed foods can increase the frequency and the severity of symptoms, so it's best to avoid them altogether. If you're a fan of chicken nuggets, cakes and donuts, or of food that comes in a bag or a box like cookies and crackers, you're best to avoid them and find some real, nutritious food to curb your appetite.
What do you think is coursing through my veins right now?
Cheese whiz?
Dairy.
Come on, I'll treat you to a Dairy Queen.
This one is probably not that much of a surprise since most people know how much of an undesirable effect dairy can have on some people. Most adults are actually lactose intolerant, so most people aren't total strangers to the feelings of IBS following a glass of cold milk. About 70% of adults worldwide do not produce enough lactase, an intestinal enzyme that helps break down the sugar in milk. While IBS and lactose intolerance can seem similar and have nearly identical symptoms,
Occupied. I'm gonna be here all night, dude.
They are, in fact, different. There are many reasons why dairy can be a problem for those suffering from IBS. First of all, dairy is full of fat, which can contribute to some stomach discomfort like gas and bloating. In some cases, switching to non-fat dairy can do the trick and reduce the symptoms. Other times, it doesn't work and dairy has to be cut out entirely.
Milk was a bad choice.
Thankfully, yogurt doesn't typically fall into this category of harmful products thanks to the natural bacteria, probiotics, it contains. They can even help ease IBS symptoms instead of triggering them. If you don't want to anger your IBS, maybe looking for lactose-free options would be best. You can go with almond, oat, or even soy alternatives and replace butter with olive oil. Garlic and onions.
Guys, we have a major problem here. No garlic bread.
For a lot of people, garlic is like the holy grail of ingredients for any recipe. Some even claim that there can never be too much garlic. As much as it can be flavorful and versatile, it might not be the best choice if you're trying to avoid the good old after-meal bloating. Sure, it comes with a list of health benefits like reducing your blood pressure or helping to combat things like the common cold, but it's also filled with fructans, a polymer of fructose. Fructans are basically a type of carbohydrate that is not easily digested and can trigger an array of symptoms in people with IBS.
I'm the party pooper.
Sadly, it's the same with onions as they contain the same carbohydrate. Since they're both extremely flavorful and are used in a lot of things, it can be hard to replace them or even want to give them up at all. If you're not willing to say goodbye to the satisfying taste of your favorite vegetables, then not all hope is lost.
I came home with the smell of farts in my clothes.
There are a lot of clever alternatives available, so you can get all the flavors without all the pain. For instance, you can grab a garlic or onion-infused olive oil the next time you cook, or even consider using chives instead of onions, or using ginger and fennel to add flavor, which can both help your stomach to chill. The point is, there are a ton of herbs and spices out there to try and replace the delicious and comforting taste of garlic in a recipe. Beans and legumes.
Perfect if you don't eat meat.
It's a well-known fact that beans and legumes are a great source of protein and fiber and, in general, can be good for digestion. For some people. For other, more sensitive people, it can be an absolute nightmare. If you have IBS, it might be best to avoid that second bowl of chili if you don't want to end up bloated or stuck in the bathroom for the rest of the day. It's all thanks to yet another type of indigestible carbohydrate called oligosaccharides. When the bacteria reach our large intestine and start to break the stuff down, it creates excess gas and bloating, which is never very fun. While it can increase gas and bloat, it can also increase bulk in the stool, which leads to constipation.
So sorry again for the delay. I have diarrhea.
Obviously, the amount of this devilish carb varies between bean varieties, so if you really must have some, you should stick to a small amount just to be safe. However, baked beans, chickpeas, lentils, and soybeans are the ones with the highest amount. There are some ways to minimize the negative effects of beans on people with IBS, and really with just about anybody. For canned beans, they need to be rinsed well before cooking. For dried beans, a little 24-hour soak should do the trick. But the absolute best way to not get bubble gut? Don't go near beans.
Jeez, did a dinosaur just fart? Jerry, get a grip!
Sorry, guys.
Some vegetables.
You know, eat your green vegetables.
Okay, everybody knows that vegetables are supposed to be good for you, the key words here being supposed to. In general, vegetables are extremely healthy and pack a lot of nutrients. However, some of those nutrient powerhouses have been proven to cause a lot of trouble to people suffering from IBS. Cruciferous vegetables, a mouthful I know, aren't the best option for people with sensitive stomachs. These veggies include the very popular broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, asparagus, and kale, to name a few.
You look like you could use a salad film. Your child-sized kale salad will arrive at 7:37 p.m.
The worst part about this news is that these vegetables are actually full of other healthy vitamins and fiber. They're meant to be good for us, not cause any harm, but all good things have their downside, apparently. If your IBS is specifically sensitive, you might have to forego the roasted Brussels sprouts at Christmas this year. But you can still enjoy some non-gas-inducing vegetables to replace them. Spinach, eggplant, zucchini, cucumbers, beets, and even sweet potatoes are all fine choices.
Oh, gross. I will not eat a darn beet.
Sugar alcohols.
This has powdered sugar on it, and I ordered no sugar. I really can't have too much sugar in the morning.
Who doesn't want to have fresh, minty breath all day long? Right before an important meeting or a very special dinner, we've all taken a piece of gum, some mints, or even mouthwash to refresh our breath. However, if you have IBS, you might want to reconsider your options. In most products like these, there is a noticeable amount of sugar alcohols like sorbitol, mannitol, maltitol, and xylitol. Not only do they sound like they can do a lot of damage, but they actually can. These artificial sweeteners are part of a family of carbohydrates called polyols, a sugar replacer. Sugar alcohols have been popular alternatives to sugar for decades and are found in a lot of everyday products like fruits and vegetables.
Said who? Sugar?
They look and taste like sugar, but have fewer calories and fewer negative health effects. But the only problem is they are resistant to digestion, meaning they can often lead to bloating and other types of discomfort for people with IBS. Actually, it's best to avoid sugar alcohols and other artificial sweeteners no matter if you have IBS or not. The best option? Go with a little natural sweetener instead. It might take a little while to get used to the taste at first, but once you get there, you'll see just how much more beneficial it is for you and your stomach.
It tastes like a foot!
Caffeine.
A damn fine cup of coffee. I can't tell you how many cups of coffee in my life, and this is one of the best.
If you're one of those people who needs at least 1 cup of coffee in the morning before you can get anything done, don't worry, you're not alone. Coffee in the morning is practically a religious ritual for almost everybody, and people aren't exactly ready to give it up yet, and that's totally fine. Unless you have IBS, then things might be a little different for you.
Oh dear, that was a mistake.
As you all know, coffee, and caffeine in general, is what we take when we're in need of a stimulant and need to get moving. However, if you live with IBS, it might make things move a little faster than you're comfortable with. Caffeine will speed up the bowel activity for just about anyone, but will be even worse for those with IBS. The major symptoms will worsen, especially if you've had more than 1 cup. The thing is, it's not just coffee, it's also caffeinated tea, soda, energy drinks, and chocolate. That's a lot of things to say goodbye to. But as it turns out, you usually don't have to mourn these for very long, as they can be gradually added back slowly and in moderation. So most of the time, a couple of weeks off the stuff and some very controlled portions will be enough to allow you to get your daily oat milk latte back.
Anybody for some coffee?
No thanks.
Stick around, tap or click another great video, hit that subscribe button, and ring that bell to join our notification squad.